Good morning, beloved. I think it's obvious to you we have a very unusual Sunday today. You please forgive my raspy voice. It disappeared last week, it reappeared just today. But it is my special privilege this morning to introduce our speaker who will give us a testimony message. Now, this wonderful lady is Dr. Bebet Sebastian, and you will hear her testimony in a very short while. Now, she is not just a medical doctor who specializes in nephrology and has a very good practice in it. She is not just the wife of one of our pastors. Someone you all know, that's Pastor B.J. Sebastian. She is not just a pastor's daughter who was born and raised in a Christian family, but most important, she is a mother of 3 children from one heavenly Father and from different earthly fathers. Now you're wondering, how can that be? That's why you should listen very carefully. You will be blessed, I promise you. I read the manuscript, I listened to her this morning, and I was blessed twice. You will be blessed today, so please open your hearts and minds to our testimony message for today from Dr. Bebet Sebastian. Let's welcome her to our pulpit today.
Good morning, everyone. So as Pastor Larry said, I am BJ Sebastian's wife, and I am the mother of 3 kids, all from different fathers. And I often introduce myself that way, and I wish I had a camera for every time that I would introduce myself that way, because the reactions that I get are really quite priceless. You know, Christian women, conservative, will wiggle in their chairs, smile politely, and the men will just have gaping faces, probably wondering how a woman with this physique can get 3 men. But in case there are some of you who still don't know, BJ and I adopted 3 kids, one of whom has gone home to be with the Lord, and we have 1 biological child, so we have 3 kids with us. The invitation to speak came at a time when I was studying Henry Blackaby's book, Experiencing God, for one of the women I'm discipling. And in that book, he says, when you say that there is something you cannot do, you have said more about your relationship with God than about yourself. Also, they coursed the invitation to BJ. And as you know, BJ never says no. So BJ just told me, by the way, I said yes to this already. So that's why I'm here to give my testimony. Going back to Henry Blackaby, he said in that book that in the book Experiencing God, that merely knowing about God is going to leave you dissatisfied. It is only when we experience Him on a day-to-day basis that we are able to move from one level of faith and obedience to another. He said that if we examine the men in the Bible who have gone on to change the world, we will see that it was in fact God who took the initiative to disclose Himself to these people through their life events. He is doing the same thing today, and I believe my journey as a mother has allowed me opportunities to experience God no other role would have. Now, I'm often intimidated to talk to an audience that BJ has already spoken to because we have very different styles. So for today, there will be no Greek or Hebrew meaning. There will be no history that will span 4 chapters back. Instead, I'll be sharing with you one experience with one of my kids. I'll be relating that to how it has allowed me to experience God, and then maybe share with you one advice that has worked for me. So after years of trying to have a baby, we finally consulted with the experts in the field of infertility at the time. We went to 3 doctors, and their verdict was all the same. Our chances of having a baby by natural means was nil, if not impossible. BJ and I were devastated with the news. However, we were convinced that God had meant for us to be parents, and so we explored the option of adopting. BJ always introduces Joby as our firstborn because that is who he is. He is the first one to be born in our hearts. From the moment that we saw Joby, we knew that we had found our son. We held him in our arms, and there was no paper that was needed in order for us to know that this is our boy. Of course, we needed it for legal purposes, and that took a little bit more time. But from that day on, he has been our son. That boy is now 19 years old, and in his 19 years, he has gone from being a model Sunday school student to a young boy angry with God over the death of his baby sister, to finding his way back to God in one of our camps, getting involved in ministry here, and eventually finding himself disillusioned with Christianity, even to the point of declaring one time, "I do not want to have anything to do with God." Umiyak na ako kanina. Akala ko hindi na ako iyak ngayon. So we have prayed with Joby, prayed for him. When he's sleeping, we pray over him. We have cried with him, cried because of him. You name it, we've done it. We've steeped him in the Word. We've done things parenting books say you should never do. I've shouted in anger. I've blackmailed. I've laid the guilt trip. Anong klase kang anak? I've done all of those. All because we want what is good for our son. Throughout the years of guiding Joby in his ups and downs, two things have remained constant. He is our son, and our love for him is unwavering. Through my experience of guiding Joby, God has allowed me to see a glimpse of him as my father and of myself as his adopted child. Romans 8:15-17 says, "We did not receive the spirit of slavery, but we have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father." Like Joby, there was nothing in his write-up to suggest that he was a child worthy to be adopted. There was nothing there to indicate that, his parents were rocket scientists or that he would grow up to be the good artist that he is now. And like me, there was nothing in me to warrant God's favor. And yet God, because of his love for me, just chose me. As his adopted child, the riches of heaven are at my disposal. Whatever good I try to do for Joby here on earth, God, as my Father, is infinitely so much more. Matthew 7:9 says, "Which one of you, if his son will ask him for a bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father, who is in heaven, give good gifts to those who ask him?" We know this. Some of you even have this underlined in your Bible. And yet, how often do we behave like teenagers towards a loving God? I don't want to go to church today because I didn't get the promotion that I think I deserve. I'm not going to pray because this prayer has been unanswered for years. I'm not going to go to growth group because, they left. They went out last Friday. They didn't invite me. Horror of horrors. I'm not going to go to growth group anymore. And yet, through our highs and lows, God has promised that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. God's love persists through our highs and lows. So my practical advice for you, for those who may be having difficulties in the family, is for you to please stay in church. Sometimes we get embarrassed to stay in church and we want to wait out the storm in some other church where people do not know us. We let our kids be counseled by other people because we are afraid to let other people in the church know. The church should be the first place broken people should run to. If it's not happening here in our church, shame on us. There have been some of you who have texted me, texted friends of friends to text me whenever they have seen questionable behavior in my kids. Let me thank you at this time because I know you are coming from a point of concern and not a place of judgment. So parents, don't be so sensitive. These people who tell you things about your kids, they love you enough to notify you and want what is best for your kids. Reach out to other people here in church who will share your burden. I have several mothers here with whom I can rant to, and I will rant and rant and rant, and they will listen. And then they will get me back on track on how best to pray for my kids. The church may not solve all of your problems, but BJ and I believe that their chances of finding good and finding the God who can make them whole is better here than outside. I've had the distinct privilege of working with the youth ministry, and these kids are very committed to seeing your kids grow. I've seen them work. They stay up late in camps. They give up their rest time so that they can be with your kids. Endorse your kids to the Y group leaders. Mark Del Rosario has patiently kept the lines of communication with Joby open, coming to the house, watching movies he probably is not interested in because he wanted to see Joby come to the faith. Joby has found friends here who have stood by him, who encourage him to stay in the group, who remind him to be with God, who pray for him and with him. You know who you are. I thank all of you at this time. Si Kevin Durant nga, umiiyak kahit na MVP award lang eh. So this is excusable. So when Joby was about 4, he began praying for a baby brother. We took that as a cue to begin our process of adopting our second child. BJ and I had accepted our lot in life, and we were very ready to adopt as many boys as God wanted us to. There was a group of ladies in our old church who never stopped believing, however, that God meant for us to be biological parents. And so they kept praying when BJ and I have already stopped. They named that prayer Project Benjamin. And that is why our second firstborn is named Jamie, short for Benjamin. My pregnancy with Jamie came at a very low point in my spiritual life. I was rebelling with God at the directions that He was leading us to. A few months before I found out I was pregnant, BJ had sat me down, looked at me lovingly in the eye, and said, "I think God is calling me to be a pastor." So like a caring wife, I looked back at him intently and lovingly told him, "Well, God's not calling me to be a pastor's wife. So you better rethink that calling." My father had heeded the same call late in his life. He became from a corporate lawyer to a pastor. And so transitioning from a pastor's kid to a pastor's wife was not in my plan. I was busy training in the hospital at that time, and I had a good excuse to not be so present in church. In fact, I quickly found out it's very hard to compete with the dying patient. You know, sometimes my dad will bring to me a member of the church kasi nagtampo daw because I didn't talk to them in church. So I will talk to them for a while, and then I'll say, "Wait lang ha, I have to make a call. I have a patient who's dying." And I will not go back anymore. It's hard to compete with a dying patient. But if I have made that excuse to anyone, I'm in a much better place, so it's probably true that I have a dying patient. I'm not trying to get out of your conversation. To BJ's credit naman, he never pressured me into behaving a certain way, but I knew he was praying for me to go back to having quiet time, to knowing God again. So a few months after we found out that I was pregnant, I had 2 near miscarriages. And on the second one, the doctor said, "I reviewed all your data, and I don't know how you got pregnant. So it's probably not going to happen again, so we need to take care of this baby. So take a leave of absence and just rest. Don't work anymore." I wasn't even allowed to go back to our apartment, which had the second floor, so we went to my mother's house. Now, my mom's house is just slightly more comfortable than a cave. To this day, they do not have any internet, no cable TV, and for some reason, cell signal penetrates their house very poorly. So this is how I know BJ is a righteous man, because his prayer for me to go back to my quiet time, God naman answered literally. So 7 months of bed rest and being with God got me back on track. And by the time Jamie was born, I was okay with being in the ministry. Now, many of you prayed for us when Jamie became sick with dengue myocarditis. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks, about 10 days in the ICU, because the virus affected his heart and it was slowing down his heartbeat so much. To put into perspective how faith-stretching that was for us, I need to go back 2 years before when we adopted our first baby girl. BJ has often talked about Hannah and how she died. It was a regular day. We were going to meet BJ, and she all of a sudden had difficulty breathing. We brought her to the hospital by 9, and she was dead by 6 a.m. The only finding that the doctors could see was that her heart had gotten bigger from the time that we initially got her. And towards the end of her life, all we could hear and see was the slowly dwindling beep of the heart monitor. And so fast forward to 2010, and here is Jamie being told that we need to transfer to the ICU because his heart rate was becoming irregular. So 2 days in the ICU, Jamie's heart rate dropped to around 50s. And my first thought to God was, oh no, you don't. You don't do this to me again, because I don't think I can do this anymore. You come in here and you be the mighty healer that you say you are, and you heal my boy, because none of this, submit to your will, do your will. The last time I prayed it, you took my baby away. It is not going to happen tonight. So God is very patient and very gracious in dealing with me. And so he allowed Jamie to stabilize for a couple of days. But then 2 days later, Jamie's heart rate dropped to 30s. This time, they couldn't even take his blood pressure by the machine anymore. And doctor after doctor was coming into the ICU, and they were putting medicines one after the other to prop up Jamie's blood pressure and Jamie's heart rate. I knew as a doctor that when those medicines are on board, that it usually means a very poor prognosis. But I also knew what the Lord wanted me to do. He wanted me to acknowledge him as Lord of all that was important to me, or he cannot be Lord at all. He wanted me to trust that the love that sealed my salvation was all that I would ever need. To know without a shadow of a doubt that no matter what happens, he will hold me in the hollow of his hand. I couldn't do it. I did not want to do it. And then the amazing thing happened. This was at around 2:30 in the morning. By 3 a.m., I was getting text messages from GCFers I did not even know. The text message were kind of the same. You don't even know us, but the Lord awakened us with you in mind, and we were wondering how may we pray for you. Those text messages gave me the strength to do what I knew God wanted from me. I did not ask BJ to come back and be with me in the hospital because I knew it was something I needed to deal with God alone. I needed to settle it with him. And so the moment I prayed, I became peaceful. I wish it was a movie. Pagkatapos mag-pray, the heart rate was up. But Jamie was very critical for the next 48 hours. But I had peace, and I knew God had me in the hollow of his hand. While you prayed for Jamie's healing, what you did not know was that it extended to healing for my soul. So Jamie is a constant reminder for me and BJ that God will answer our prayers, specifically, on time, and always with a bonus beyond what we imagined. He answered Joby's prayers for a baby brother. He answered BJ's prayer for me to go back to my quiet time. He answered all of your prayers for Jamie's healing with an added bonus of my spiritual healing. I was talking with Elder Gobi one time about losing a loved one, and as many of you have lost loved ones know, it is not the length of time that they have been with us, it is the amount of love that we have invested in them. And so 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, 20 years, it's always too soon to lose a loved one. But Elder Gobi said that if you can pass through that and trust God, then you're okay because you can trust him for virtually everything else. And that's certainly been true in our lives. But it would not have been possible had I not known that you were all praying for us. So my practical advice is to pray. There is an old hymn that goes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Allow God to inconvenience you. I don't know about you, when I wake up at 3 a.m., I pee. I do not ask God, who can I pray for, God? But you did that for us, and so I thank all of you. James 5:13-15, the writer says, is anyone among you suffering? Then let him pray. And the prayer of the faith will save the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up. The Lord knew how sick I was. Your prayers certainly lifted me up. Now, we were perfectly happy with our 2 boys, but I once walked in on them and they were praying for a baby sister. So I said, stop that. It's not going to happen. And Joby, with the faith of a child, said, well, you're too late. It's been prayed and seconded by Jamie, so it's going to happen. Now, many of you know that I am a no-frills girl. I don't like pink. I would much rather be in jeans and rubber shoes. And I would really rather face a firing squad than watch ballet. God knew I wasn't going to begin the process of adopting for a baby girl, so He kind of twisted our hand there. A child was left behind in my sister's office. Now, my sister has a restaurant. So sometimes she would call me and say, are you home? I'm going to bring something. And that's usually food. So the same day, she said, are you home? I'm going to bring something. So I was waiting for food, and she walks in with a baby girl. Now, the moment Joby saw Hannah, he knew that Hannah was the answer to our prayers. Hannah is our baby who died, and we had so many questions. We will never fully know the reason why God brought her into our lives just to take her away so soon. But we know that in the short time that she was with us, she opened up our hearts to the reality that there was enough love, enough resources for another baby in the house. Certainly enough patience for me to raise a baby girl. So after grieving for Hannah, we began the process of adopting our second baby girl. And God, of course, because He has this bad sense of humor, did not just give me a girl, He gave me a girly girl. Those of you who know Jana know that she likes pink and laces. She's very princessy. She has a very very astute sense of fashion, especially when it comes to shoes. And despite bribing her to take up hip-hop, she has persisted in pursuing ballet. BJ and I have actually watched a recital and we didn't die naman. No? But Jana is just pure joy. She is the one who will come to us and hug us just because. My boys hug me, but it's usually to say, Mama, you're getting fat. Jana will also make cards for us, and it will be there waiting for us. After a long day, she will say, I love you, I miss you. She is just pure, pure joy, the apple of BJ's eye. So Jana has allowed me to experience God as the one who fills us with joy and surprises us with things we never would have expected if we did not step out of our comfort zone. Moses, Abraham, Paul, they are just some examples of men who were plucked out of their comfort zone and went on to do mighty things for God. And while we will never count ourselves in that category, that's what God has been doing in our lives. When I was on board with going in the ministry, we applied to many things. BJ and I are actually antisocial. Di lang halata kay BJ kasi daldal niya. But we are antisocial. And so we wanted the ministry that would allow us to get in touch and then come out. So we applied in prison ministry, as a missionary doctor, and all of that. God, of course, decided to put us in a small community church. And not just in a small community church, but in a small community church in charge of the youth ministry. You know how torture it is for an antisocial couple to be in charge of the youth ministry in a small community church? We live very close to the church, and so the kids were in our house all the time. They ate our food, they drank our coffee, and they kept talking and talking and talking. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., they're still talking. But that ministry has brought us so much joy and so much satisfaction that we would never have been able to experience in any other ministry. Having a daughter has also opened my heart to the need to mentor other women. Before, if you ask me to join a women's ministry, I will flat out say no. I can poke a needle in your back a foot long and get a sample of your kidney. But the thought of doing arts and crafts with a couple of women will give me nightmares for days. But having a daughter has allowed me to see the need to mentor young women. And so when the call came together with some of the other women here in church, we now have the fellowship called Real Grace. So my final advice is to get out of your comfort zone. Go ahead and form that office Bible study that's been nagging in your head, or mentor that young boy who has been following you relentlessly. Go and audition for the choir. Volunteer for the shed. Because when you stop looking at what you can and cannot do, then you open yourself up to the limitless possibilities of what God can do through a single obedient person. While I have recounted my experiences as a mom as God's way of initiating, revealing Himself to me, He is actually doing so in each of the lives present here. If we pause and look, we will see that in the middle of deadlines that need to be met, of targets in the office, of partners who seem to be inattentive to your needs, of medical bills that keep piling up, of a special someone who has not come along. Yan ang laging tanong ng mga youth. Wala pa ang God's will. We will see that God is there, showing a bit of Himself, so that you can move from one level of faith and obedience to another. So yes, I am a pastor's wife. And yes, I am a mother of 3 kids with different fathers. But those are merely roles I have been privileged to assume while I am here on earth. Who I am in the very core of my being is I am a child of God who has been loved graciously, perfectly, and patiently. That truth fuels and puts into perspective all the experiences that I have shared with you. And I pray that if there is anyone here who is not yet sure of where he stands before God, that you will take a pause and look at where God has led you today, even to the point of listening to a testimony of a life that's just been filled with God's love and God's grace. There is no merit in me, and yet God chose me. God sealed His love for me on that cross that day. He is choosing you also to be a recipient of that perfect love. Embrace it. Allow God to let you experience Him day to day so that you can move from one level of faith and obedience to another. Happy Mother's Day to everyone, and good morning, GCF.